So what advice would you have for people who are either aspiring to go to law school, or it's just something that they're thinking about, or even, for young people who have it as a dream to be in law school one day?
That's a great question. And there are times when I get asked this question by people and they have their own self-interest in asking me that. But I also know there are times when people want to ask me and they don't. And so this message is really for everybody who has ever thought about the possibility of becoming a lawyer. And that is one, just to believe that you can do that. And belief sounds like such a minor thing, but it's probably one of the most important things that we carry into life, because nothing can be accomplished unless we believe it. And so number one is just know that you have the ability, right? We hear people say all the time, hey, if I could do it, you can do it. And somebody has to believe that. The truth of the matter is that's true. That's exactly what it takes. Is just this belief. Number two, it starts now, right? So many people are waiting for themselves to get to some finish line where they can start preparing for law school. And so if I'm talking to a kid who's in high school, it starts now, right? Law school, as you know, is a very competitive process. And the people who get admitted are the people who have the best GPAs and the best LSAT scores. And you don't just get there by doing an LSAT prep class, right? Or studying a week before the final just to make sure you can get a good grade. I think people need to compete right now in class. They need to understand, yeah, these are my buddies. I'm going to go to the game with them and we're going to hang out afterwards. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to get a better grade than they are. And so I think people need to start competing in a way to distinguish themselves academically, and then just be exposed to some people. Like I grew up where I didn't really go out and seek mentors. I obviously had a very strong dad at home, and he was my idol. And although he was not a lawyer, he just knew how to live life. And I had a great example, but I never had any exposure to personal injury or just the law in general. There was no lawyers. There weren't any lawyers in the neighborhood where I grew up in. And so I think to the extent that people can find those kinds of people, they'll be surprised at how lawyers are willing to help, or really any profession they want to go into. People are always willing to help and show them what they need to be shown in order to achieve it. But at the end of the day, if I break them down to fundamentals, that number one is you just have the mindset that you can do it. I have a cousin, or we have a cousin who's an attorney, and he was going to go into social work. And he called me and I said, well, did you ever think about law school? And he said, well, I'm not ready to do law school. And he's an amazing lawyer today, and it has an amazing amount of accomplishments. And it started with just having that belief. So certainly, those are the things that I think you need: that belief, that competitive spirit, and then just the ability to finish what you start. Everybody starts, right? And the people we admire the most finish what they start. You've heard me say before, quitters never win and winners never quit. But winners think about quitting,
right?
If they're honest, but they stick with it, and they muster up whatever they have internally to say, I just got to keep pressing on, even though I'd want to stop right now. And once you start to do that in early areas of your life, you stack these wins up. And when you get to those points later in life, then you can rely on that experience to say, hey, I know I'm not a quitter. I'm just going to keep moving forward. So that's my very long-winded take.
That was excellent.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And I love what you said about believing in yourself. I think I've told you a few times that you're the reason I believe in dreams.
Yeah.
Because when no one else sees it, you see it. And that's with anything in life, is whether it's the legal field or personal, social. If no one else sees the vision, you do. And it doesn't matter what we say or my siblings say or mom says. It's just once you put your mind to it, you can do it. And I think if everyone carries that mindset and has a bit of perseverance, it can take you very far.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And you've had a front row seat to see my flaws and faults and all of those things that, the general public doesn't get a chance to see, right? And I wish they did, right? And I try to be as transparent as I can to let them know that I wasn't born with an exorbitant amount of resources. I didn't have, money, or I didn't have access, but I did have this belief that, if those guys could do it,
right,
I could do it. And what I came to find out was all that's required is work, right? You don't have to have all of these silver bullets and special resources. You just got to show up and work, and then go to bed and wake up the next day and do the same thing. And over time, you look back and you say, man, we've really accomplished quite a bit. And it wasn't because of these superficial things out there. It was because we just showed up and put the work in.
I agree. Yeah. And when you talked about starting, that was really good, because I think that's a big thing that I noticed with young people, middle-aged people, and older people who are interested in the legal field. They're just like, well, what if this goes wrong? You know, I'm older, I'm younger. By the time this finishes, I'll be this age. And it's just like, well, you'll be that age anyway.
That's right.
Might as well have a legal degree or be an attorney, you know? So I think that's a good point to just take the leap, because life will never be perfect. Yeah.
And you know, I'm going to touch on something with you, because I heard you say this when we were celebrating your accomplishment. Actually, you alluded to it, but you were at a women's conference or something. I saw a video clip. But you know, this notion of people standing in our way, right? Like haters preventing us from doing what we want to do. Like, that's all myth. Right. Like, the biggest person we have to avoid is that person in our head, right? Because we've all lived long enough to know that we said, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And then we wake up the next day, well, I don't have the money to do that. And I don't know this person. And I'm going to have to move to this location. And before we know it, we've talked ourselves out of the great idea. And so we stand in our own way. And this what if question, this what if I don't succeed? What if I'm not good enough? You talked about changing that what if, and expound on that a little bit.
Yes, it was at a women's conference, and I noticed in the room a lot of people were talking about what could go wrong if they didn't go for something. And so I think my biggest message, especially for people who are interested in the legal field but are having some doubts, if you keep saying the negative what ifs, like you just said, you'll convince yourself. And you'll make every excuse, and then it'll be the end of your life, and it'll be full of what ifs. Yeah. And so I just said to change your what ifs, because what if it's the greatest thing you've ever done? Yeah. What if it's been the most amazing accomplishment you've ever achieved? Yeah. And what if you build this community of people that you never thought you would see before? So I think when you shift your what ifs, it really can change your life if you keep your mindset that way.
Absolutely. And that just touches on this kind of recurring theme of mindset, right? Like, the mindset is so important. And we keep running into these different scenarios in life where there are obstacles or challenges. And that kind of mindset where you say, well, what if I approach it the right way and knock it out of the park, I think is the difference between people who, you know, live an extraordinary life, build an extraordinary legacy, and those who, you know, live with a lot of regret. Because I think the regret stems from the realization that that voice in my head was really wrong. Right. And I've seen enough examples of me to be able to know that I could have done more, and I just didn't. And so I'm just excited that you understand that now, because for a lot of us, it takes us, you know, a lot more living to do before we get to that point. And I think you carry that forward into what you do in your practice, what you do in your social relationships, your personal relationships, you know, all of these things. Like, if life was easy, it wouldn't be a 4-letter word. Right. You know, they were already out of the other ones, so they just gave us life. But yeah, that mindset is really helpful.